Welcome back to the second part of Opinion Court. We pick it up from where Francis Gashuri and his panel left us. Let me introduce to you my panel in the studio. Apollo Mboye is the Chief Executive of the Law Society of Kenya to my immediate right, and Edward Kisiangani, our resident political analyst, joins me on the left. Prof, you've heard the sentiments, especially those expressed by John Mbadi, and it is a feeling that Anyang' Nyong'o earlier in the program expressed as well about the credibility of the current IEBC being affected specifically by this Chickengate, quote-unquote, sentencing. How badly do you think it has damaged the reputation of the current IEBC, bearing in mind that it is officials of the interim independent, boundaries and electoral body that were found culpable of some sort of guilt in this particular saga, and that of that group, only Chairman Ahmed Isaka-san remains in now the IEBC?
When you hold political office, when you hold public office, it doesn't matter whether you come at one time, you decide to retire. You must be accountable for the actions you did, you undertook, when you are in that position to serve the public. So whether they were interim or not, they were serving the Republic of Kenya. And from what we are now seeing, I think for John Mbadi, my friend, I'll just tell him this, that first of all, he's right. The credibility of IEBC is not good. That is a fact. But he should also know that his political strategy to win the election was poor. So he must understand that even with a good IEBC, he would still have lost the election because they had serious structural problems. So they should not keep on crying about that. They should be occupied with coming up with the correct strategy that would make them win the elections. But if they keep on sulking again, they will fail the elections in 2017. But when it comes to credibility, he's right. And this credibility comes about because we have seen damning information coming from London, especially Smith and Osman Company, that is supposed to print our certificates, and it's also supposed to print the ballot papers. The tender is given out, and a lot of information has been running in the media that certain members of the IEBC, including the chairman, the former chief executive of Oswago, and Chirchir, who is the Minister for Energy, were involved in taking bribes in order to give the tender to that company. This is very serious. It violates Article 10 of the Constitution on national values, but it also violates Article 232, which talks about the values that every public officer should observe. As a result of that, they don't need to be interim. Even if they were interim, they must be accountable for what they did while they were serving the Republic. For Isaac Hassan, who is now remaining there, first of all, he must have, with that information alone, until he clears his name, he's already now a person who has already been counted as a suspect in corruption. He must step down to save the country's image until he clears his name, because we don't know whether he's innocent or not. He might have his own defense. But for others who have gone home already, like Oswago and, for example, the former boss of the Examination Council, they really need to come out and clear their name.
But let me put it this way to you, which is where I'm leading with my question.
Yes.
Is it damaging enough to call into question the credibility of what was an already disputed, election that brought Uhuru Kenyatta into power? Is the Chickengate scandal enough for a Quad coalition to sort of reignite their Okoa Kenya claims that the current IEBC actually must go, that we have to do away with the current IEBC, all and sundry? I
think it gives a lot of credibility to that argument that we need to do away with the IEBC. If people can be, as we have been told, can receive money in order to give tenders, they can also receive money to rig the elections. There is totally no way you can separate the two. So the information we have so far from London is telling us that these people are corrupt. So they can be corrupt in one aspect of receiving money to print papers because they want to get rich, but they can also be corrupt. They could be given money. So it is lending credence to the fact that probably they are not right people. And that's why I quoted the Constitution that in terms of national integrity and values, they don't seem to meet the threshold. So therefore, if they organize elections last time, and with this information that is coming out, they should not organize elections in 2017.
Apollo, your thoughts?
Thank you. First, my thoughts, I was shocked that Isaac did not send a legal representative in that court. Once the news started filtering in that he was being adversely mentioned, as a lawyer, I would have advised them to send a lawyer so that they can be enjoined in that suit. I never saw that. I don't understand that strategy. It was wrong. I never saw the cabinet secretary who was being adversely mentioned, and the news was trickling in and everybody was reading and in public domain. They should have sent a lawyer to observe those proceedings.
Right.
But now, going forward, I want to agree with Professor. Chicken was delivered. The gate has been opened. Now chickens have come home to roost.
Let me ask you this. EACC says that, you know, it is liaising with the Serious Fraud Office in the UK to get, quote-unquote, evidence, you know, in order to be able to pursue these cases locally. But in the absence of a fresh local legal proceeding at the court, is there enough evidence on which the government of Kenya can act in regards to the cabinet secretary and the IEBC officials, starting with Ahmed Isaka-san?
Okay, even before we come to the evidence, the fact that we have public officers still in office, they must inspire confidence to the public in those positions that they hold. The mere fact that the Serious Fraud Office has successfully prosecuted a case, then we can compare with our Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I mean, you can see Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is nowhere close to what Serious Fraud Office has done.
Not so much confidence in local institutions from you.
We have institutions, we have over-legislated in Kenya, almost on everything. I can tell you, even in UK, there is even no constitution. It's a written constitution, but the systems are working. It shows you the rule of law, how it works. In Kenya, we have over-legislated, the laws are there. We have created institutions, the institutions are not working. We have created credible judiciary, they are not working. Even the people who...
Then why are you still a lawyer? Do you still go to court? If you believe, hold on, Prof, if you believe the judiciary is not working, do you still show up in court? And what confidence do you have in that process? How?
As lawyers, we must uphold the rule of law. And where we play our game is in the court system. But in Kenya, we must understand the environment that we are operating in. We are operating in an environment of impunity. And you'll find even the people who are meeting that impunity agrees with everybody that impunity is wrong, yet they're also meeting it. Everybody agrees that impunity is existing in the country.
So the president should fire his cabinet secretary, David Chicher?
He should not wait to be fired. He should have been stepping aside and been saying that, yes.
You see, Anne, his name has been brought into sorrowful disrepute. And the best thing to do, even for his own family and his own friends, is to say, I am innocent, but I will have to prove my case. Please, I'm stepping down. Because you see now, this case that you are hearing about in London affects the executive in Kenya. Whether they want to work with people who have been seriously mentioned in such cases, it affects the judiciary. The other person who should step down actually is the entire bench of the Supreme Court. You see, that is another institution. You remember during the hearing of this case, because it has already been settled about the elections, one of the things that Oraro, the lawyer for the opposition, said is that this election was meant to fail, and from day one people were involved in activities that made things very difficult, and it was not supposed to succeed. All these procurement things were meant to fail, and then he proved it. Now, here is a situation where a lawyer has done that, and you are a lawyer, and then in the ruling of the Supreme Court they say, yes, there were irregularities, but we uphold what? The election results. This is the Mtunga and the company. So therefore, even the credibility of this is at stake. So the first person to resign should be Chirchir. Then we expect all members of the Supreme Court, if this case is proved as now it's going on, to clear their names before they get back. Their credibility is also in doubt. And at the IEBC, I think we need a reshuffle now. We need Isaac Hassan to quit, and anybody who was involved in that to quit, to save these institutions. If these gentlemen start quitting, then we shall now say, we can't convict IEBC. It is just an institution. We can have new men and women who have integrity to serve the Republic of Kenya.
But the obvious question, Prof, is does it just end there? If, in fact, then even the Supreme Court are culpable of some sort of wrongdoing, then shouldn't the beneficiary of that ruling then also step aside?
I started by saying it affects the executive.
Right.
And when I say that, I meant that, you see, because if you look at the situation, the way it's opportuning, everybody's being touched. The next thing you will hear, Anne, after this London case, is tomorrow you will see some politicians picking up the case and say that is a foreign court. And they will tell you a lot of things that this is some colonial court, it doesn't like us. But look, even when it was clear that there were malpractice in the election, even in procurement, who has been taken to court? A foreign court finds its own citizens culpable and guilty of working corruptly with our own officials here. And all you see are circles from Ethics and Corruption Commission, the Supreme Court. All we are doing is circles. And in 2017, you will see that most of the things that we need to put in place to have a fair and credible elections will not be in place. Then we start the circle again. And the impact of this is that our country starts, you know, reaching the periphery of the brink of collapse, because people want to fight each other because simple things are not put right. So in this case, actually, Anne, those who have the conscience of this nation, they believe that Kenya must proceed, should take responsibility. They should resign tomorrow. What
responsibility does the Law Society have in this matter?
First of all, one of the objects of the Law Society is to advise the government on all matters touching and ancillary to the law. One advice that, even if we start from the judicial point of view, one area touching on elections that we have talked about is that every Supreme Court judge, and we have proposed that to be put in the rules, must write their own judgment and ruling, even if they are ending up at the same conclusion, so that you eliminate the issue of judicial laziness. Even if they are ending at the same conclusion, let's see how each of them are arguing their ruling to the end. That's one area. One area that also we'll have to look at is the timelines that have been put for various election petitions. That's on the judicial aspect.
But on Chickengate, let's stick to Chickengate. Is the Law Society going to be moving to the Kenyan courts, instituting any proceedings to get some of these officials out of office should they not choose to step aside?
Okay. On that aspect, we expect that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will do what is required to be done. But also, even before you reach there, we expect the people who have been adversely mentioned to prick their own concerns and decide, is it proper and tenable to be in those positions? They should ask themselves that question even today as they are going to sleep. And of course, as the Law Society of Kenya and the Council always deliberate all these issues. When it comes to a point where we see that there is no movement, the Law Society definitely will move the relevant authorities to take the necessary actions that are required.
Well, we're just about to wind up, Prof, and I'm hoping that we can also get Francis Gashuri on the line a little later in this broadcast to give us the latest from Homa Bay. But I want to touch on the fact that John Badi says, yes, fine, we believe IEBC did a good enough job since our candidate has won, essentially, or is expected to be announced the winner in the Homa Bay race. But we don't trust them to carry out presidential elections. Other elections, they seem like they can handle it, but when it comes to a vote on the presidency, they can't handle it. How, what do you make of that sort of sentiment? How reasonable is it?
You know, the argument is arid, because first of all, from the beginning...
Not semi-arid?
No, it's just arid.
Okay.
But cold and arid. Because what Anne, you are seeing here is this. There's nothing to celebrate about Homa Bay. From day one of nomination, Homa Bay was an assault on democracy.
Right.
So if we are going to give this gentleman...
Rather, I should say how. So that you could explain it to the audience. I know what you mean.
The
assault was...
The winner,
yes,
was forced down the throat of the people, and the people were told that unless you do this, they were told you will have gone away from the line. Remember this, that the entire mind of the Luo Nyanza water got stuck in the political swamps of Odingaism.
But that is that was the choice of the voters.
Yes.
The people went to the vote today.
So they cannot think, you know, we have heard about this thing called Beyond Zero campaign. So Beyond Odinga campaign must begin. Yes, you know, if we have Beyond Odinga campaign, the thinking of Nyanza will change. And they don't know how many opportunities they have had. And you know, so celebrating the winning of what? Of Kajwang. No, wait. It's serious matter. Celebrating the win of Kajwang and saying that there was fairness. What does it do about democracy? You have a party which started off by having an election, an abortive election in Kasarani. Then it nominates its executive council without elections. Then it ends up choosing who should be voted for. Then you start celebrating. Suppose you are in power, what democratic space shall we have in this country? So that's why this guy, the vehicle is stuck beyond Odingaism. When do we begin that? And that's when those people will see the opportunities they have missed. So really, they can praise ICPC, but for me, it is zero. We were expecting that, and it has got to do with the cultural background of the community. Their worth syndrome from Sudan to here, which says that you don't disobey elders, and you know it. You are from that area. Yes. Their worth syndrome, and they must go beyond that. So, there's nothing to celebrate about that. As far as the presidential election is concerned, it's actually hypocrisy. Because the presidential election, let me give you an example, Anne. And I have said this thing repeatedly in other forums. Kakamega and Bungoma, I will give those two examples as an example. Kakamega has the capacity, it's the second largest county in this country. Right. It has the capacity to register 1.2 or 1.3 million voters. Right. At the time of registration, while some people were singing Mapambano, it had, at the time of election, we had only about 661 voters, with a turnout rate of 55%. Because of mobilization on the ground? And that, and that is a stronghold of CORD. Then Bungoma, which had the capacity to register 1.1 million voters, it had only 451, with a turnout rate of what? Of another 55%. This scenario obtains across the CORD strongholds. Instead of singing Mapambano, they should have looked at this strategy. What was the strategy of mobilization? Right. So, before you even blame others for your failures, start by looking inside and say, what have I not done right? Honorable Mbadi is a very reasonable person and is my friend. I would like him to address this scenario and deal with these issues before 2017 so that we are saved from this kind of mess. Apollo, your final thoughts.
Yeah, my final thoughts. Yes, I come from Homa Bay County.
Right. Were you expecting the sort of landslide that seems to be taking place or not?
Of course, I come from the Karachonyo constituency, where my MP, of course, was not supporting, Engineer Regi was not supporting Kajwang. I went home, but the feeling I got is that, yes, Moses was going to be elected, but not, I didn't expect that margin, okay? But my final thoughts on issues that we've just talked about. First, we must address the issue of IEBC in good time. We don't want the country being taken through this motion of IEBC disbanding, reconstituting on the election year. It is very draining. We must address it right now. And the organs of government and the institutions that have been created to handle this kind of matter needs to move with speed, so that if they are innocent, we know they are innocent and we leave IBC and we look forward. If they are not, then we see how to deal with it. If it's reconstitution, we could reconstitute it in good time, not any other time.
All right.
Yes. But do you yes. What do you say about this Roth syndrome?
Oh my goodness.
No, I asked you, but you come from there. Yes. Do you fear being stoned when you go back to your house?
Let me tell you, in terms of African culture, we are, of course, socialized in such a way that you respect your elders.
Even when they are doing bad things.
Okay. Not even when they are doing bad things.
And you please, can I rescue you from answering that? You know, Prof and his Beyond Odinga campaign, I don't even want to comment on that anymore. And of course, Apollo Mboya,
thank you very much.
of the LSK. I thank you, gentlemen, both for speaking to us. And of course, we'll be back with more. Remember, we are still live in Homa Bay. Francis Gashuri is there. We're following those results for you very closely. And perhaps by the end of this bulletin, perhaps we may be able to give you a stronger indication as to what those margins are in the senatorial race. But we can authoritatively tell you that Moses Kajwang does appear poised to take that seat.